In terms of like my own identity, I go by the term like my curiosity. So I feel that in a way like describes my sort of like my own self-identity. So like being Persian American, also being an interfaith leader, so really promoting the learning of different faith, non-faith, spiritual, like all different aspects, and then also the other aspect being just like learning about other cultures, learning about different religions, non-faith traditions, and then also like sexual orientation, just like pretty much like everything encompassing. So I think like with the bi curiosity, like both go hand in hand. So like self and then also community. So in terms of my own religious beliefs, I was raised Baha'i, and when I say Baha'i, it is sometimes not commonly like heard of. So when I say it, people are like, "Oh, what is that?" Or like Baha'i faith, or they're like, "Ba what?" So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm like, I always love like teaching and just like really hearing other people's stories as well. But with the Baha'i faith, it's an independent world religion that believes in the oneness of mankind, oneness of religion, oneness, pretty much like equality of men and women. It's this like progressive revelation. So, as Baha'is, we believe that there is, different prophets, in each like age that come to civilization to bring the message of God. So it's essentially, we see a lot of interconnectedness between different faiths and even like non-faiths, and that personally, I should say more I statements, I, but like I believe that there is a God, but we're all interconnected in some way through our different religious beliefs, and that's what makes me so passionate for interfaith, because it allows me to really hear other people's stories. Like there is like religion, non-faith traditions, like at the surface level, but actually getting at a deeper level where you understand how people practice their faiths or non-faith. And it's like kind of like two pillars. So it's like kind of like the consciousness of like understanding one story, so really like learning about each other, and then like the action, so like actually like kind of seeing them in practice, or kind of seeing how they live that lifestyle. So I think those are like really important. I think when growing up, I've always had that like openness, that I guess that teaching of really loving one another, and actually in the Baha'i faith, you're not like officially Baha'i until your like age of maturity. You actually get to choose. So at that time, you're actually encouraged to like investigate the truth. So actually like just like encounter like different religions, non-faith traditions, like spiritual, whatever it may be. It's like different. Like it's so cool. I'm just like, oh, what is this? And it's just like those it really comes down to the core of conversations, and I think that's what essentially creates this very like just unity and diversity concept. Like we all have like our different part in this life, but we all have this common goal to strive for a better community, and it really takes like each of us like in our own like personality, our own passions to really come together and build this wonderful community. So yeah. As mentioned before, I guess I identify as like Persian American. So my parents are originally from Iran, so they migrated to the United States, and then I was born here in St. Louis. Yay! But no, it's been very interesting because when growing up, also like my parents are really teaching me like Farsi, which is like the primary language in Iran, and well also other languages as well. But for my language, I speak Farsi, but very, very minimal. And just learning more about the culture, I feel like I'm still learning a lot. When people ask questions, I'm like, oh well, I might have to look that up, or oh, I can only say it like at the surface level, but in a way that helps me kind of, or it also motivates me to learn more about my own culture. Definitely learning more about like the history aspect. During the time before like the fall of the Shah to the Islamic Republic, that's like around the 1979. So that was like a time when there was just a lot of change in like the society like structure, especially like so when the Islamic Republic in 1979 came through, there's a lot of change in like religious like minorities, such as like targeting. Also there's like inflation. So there's a lot of change in like how people perceived certain religions, certain people's society. Like women became second class. So it's just like and then I think the other aspect is also media, how it's portraying like certain cultures or certain like religions. So I think when I say the media, they say like Middle East, but there's just so much richness. So like each culture. So like it's not just Middle East, but there's also like Persians, like Turkish, Pakistanis, like Afghanis. There's so many like different layers, but we're all interconnected in some way, and that's like again through time of history. So even though I'm Persian, I could be like a little bit Turkish, like Pakistan. Who knows? But like it's really cool to kind of talk to someone who is from that own like culture. And I'm still kind of like learning on base to base, but definitely after the 1979 revolution in Iran, it's really changed people's perception of what what Iran is, because you see about like the government, like and like society, like what's going on, like there's just a lot of like corruption, but specifically it's good to talk to people who are actually like within that society, because it differentiates like from what you see on the media versus someone who's actually like been a part of that revolution. Definitely my parents, like just like hearing their story and seeing like what the society is really about. So I think just like breaking down those barriers of like, Persians are conservative, or they just things like that. Like I think definitely those conversations really help to break down those like barriers and misconceptions. So yes, let's see. So I did touch like a little bit base of like very briefly about like the history, but I think kind of like going back to own identity, like being raised Baha'i. I think it in terms of like the history and what has like happened in Iran. So since the revolution, they have been targeting religious minorities, not only Baha'is but also like Christians, like Jewish, like and I think it's definitely certain individuals, like in the society itself, they recognize that this is not okay. But again, when it comes to media portrayal, it's kind of like there's not much information based, but we have like more access, but we have to be very like careful as well. But essentially what has happened is that during the revolution, they were just targeting Baha'is because it's after Islam, so they didn't consider it as a faith. So what they would do is essentially want to like eliminate the population of Baha'is, which is I think over time it's happened in many cases, just like targeting one minority or like different religious minorities, and it's just a matter of like being in that constant like fear. And so I guess like talking to my parents a lot and seeing like how they had to escape at that time because they couldn't stay, or else they would be in prison right away. So currently, I mean, at that time it was a lot of persecutions, executions, but now it's better. But now at this point, they're taking out Baha'is like from schools. They're not given the opportunity to continue their education just because they practice a different faith. And this is with other scenarios and with not scenarios but other situations where women are not given like education because there's a second class. So it's really there's a lot of like issues that need to be at the forefront and need to be taken into much priority. But essentially what has happened right now is that they have to like have an underground education system. So they kind of have to have their own curriculum, find different methods, and even though there are situations where they are found out and they again have to go kind of from ground zero and start up again. I think for me, it's I have this opportunity to have an education with SLU, which is like very diverse, very open to different like religious groups, not faith, sexual orientation, whatever it may be. It's like I have this opportunity, so how can I like contribute? How can I help those who are given less opportunity, and especially those in Iran, and not given that opportunity to have an education? And so just like making people more aware, possibly signing a petition. There are many different opportunities, but definitely bringing that awareness is the key. And then the action part. So it's kind of like those two pillars, that consciousness of understanding and knowing, and then what the next step will be. So definitely that has been something that has also been like fluid throughout my other throughout my other experience as well, or learning about other situations or issues that have occurred, especially in like St. Louis with Ferguson. It's something that I think was very necessary to bring up those conversations and have those uncomfortable conversations too, because I think that allowed people to have the different perspectives, again, understanding, and especially people who have like a much more personal connection, and then knowing what to do from there, the solution, the action. So I think it's very important to just have those two pillars. Yeah. Oh gosh. So let's see. I mean, there's so much to talk about actually, but I think, you know, when coming to SLU, you know, the one thing that definitely resonated and what I love about it is, you know, SLU as well, is, you know, that creating that safe space for people to have, you know, difficult conversations, again, whatever it may be. And definitely I resonate with like Interfaith Alliance. You know, it's an organization that brings people of like different faith, non-faith, like spiritual, whatever it may be. Just bring people together, you know, to really just like understand everyone like at a personal level. Now, not asking questions like, you know, really personal. I mean, you can get really personal, but I think it's, you know, the comfortability that like, you know, we come from, you know, different backgrounds, but we have this love to just like learn about each other, similarities, differences, wherever it may be, and just like knowing that it's okay to have disagreements too, but just like knowing that we, in the end, will like still come together. And, you know, so I think it's, but I think it's like, you know, really, you know, just having kind of that full circle, like, you know, learning about someone, but also that sharing, like sort of that cycle of education. So like, you know, I think it's, you know, passing on their story, like, but also like allowing them to also share their story as well. But I think it's just like, you know, it's just like, it's really cool. You know, I think it's just like, there's no words for it, because like, I think it's just that love for learning and that openness too. And it's like, sometimes you think about like, you know, why can't we just like, you know, it's kind of that concept of like, why can't we just like, you know, work together? Like, why do there always have to be like, you know, like really, you know, issues or like anything? But I think in a way, sometimes, you know, struggles help us kind of understand like how we can improve, you know, as, you know, not only like ourselves, but also as a community. So I think like sometimes struggles are necessary too, or sometimes like in certain situations. But I think like definitely like with certain issues, I think you just kind of ask the, you know, question why, and you just kind of have to say, well, I guess I should answer that question, you know, kind of thing. But you know, definitely, you know, when I talk about interfaith, it's much more than just like, you know, organizational SLU. It's a movement, because I think, you know, it's a way of bringing people together, you know, again, coming from different backgrounds, and really tackling these issues, like, you know, whether it's like, you know, religious intolerance, sometimes, you know, hunger, poverty, like, and just, you know, finding different solutions, and like just understanding that we all like coming from different backgrounds, different like ideas. So that's just the coolest part. And then knowing that in the end, like, you know, we all will come together. So like, it's, you know, it's definitely like, you know, an awesome experience. I think within these past 4 years, just like talking to different people and just creating a more like whole, I think, again, wholesome, like by curiosity, you know, just not only self, but like of others, you know, too. So I think it's really cool. So.